Hello, everybody. Welcome to 7.7. More drug stories we're going to be talking about today and a whole bunch of other stuff, but we'll get into that soon. But before we get started with the show, 2 weeks in a row, we remembered to pull a tarot card. We're very excited about this. So, Sharon, I do have a quote, though. Do you want me to read it first, or do you want to do it?
Yes. Why don't you read the quote first?
Okay. The quote is from the Kabbalion again. It says, "The half-wise, recognizing the comparative unreality of the universe, imagine that they may defy its laws. Such are vain and presumptuous fools, and they are broken against the rocks and torn asunder by the elements by reason of their folly. The truly wise, knowing the nature of the universe, use laws against laws and the higher against the lower, and by the art of alchemy, transmute that which is undesirable into that which is worthy, and thus triumph. Mastery consists not in abnormal dreams, visions, and fantastic imaginings or living, but in using the higher forces against the lower, escaping the pains of the lower planes by vibrating on the higher plane. Transmutation, not presumptuous denial, is the weapon of the master." The Kabbalion.
It was about transmutation again. Alchemy.
Yeah.
I like it. Well, let's see what the cards say, because I was shuffling earlier before we turned on the record button and 2 cards fell out. And so I just thought I would keep those because they clearly want to be seen. So this is I'm turning them over right now. This is the first time I'm looking at them. And we have lots of cups. We have lots of emotions.
All right. What a surprise.
No surprise for me. The 4 of Cups and the 10 of Cups. Well, let me see if I can do this. And since Brandon knows more about this stuff than I do, I'm going to let him speak about it. I believe I've seen these cards recently in some of my readings. I think the 4 of Cups, and I think I've seen the 10 of Cups recently as well. So my daily readings.
Well, first thing I want to say is let's think about the numerology of these cards. Well, anything stick out to you? Any synchronicities? 10 and 4 is 14.
Which is 5.
No, stop at 14. Well, yeah, you're
okay. So
no, you're right. You're right.
Temperance, right?
Well, yeah, but what are the synchronicities? What episode is this?
Is this
7.7?
7 is 14.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
Holy three holies.
Okay, so that, and then
that's pretty cool. But yeah, go ahead. You were right with everything you said. I just wanted to get that synchronicity.
Yeah, no, it is. I didn't even notice that. So, and then we have 14, which is temperance. And I pulled that card yesterday for a friend and for me later on in a totally different deck. Same position, same card. So that was a synchronicity for me. And then the
same deck or a different deck? Different
deck.
Okay, yeah, that makes it even more interesting.
Different deck, yeah. And if you add 1 and 4, which was the first thing I was going to do, it's 5. And then the 5 is the Hierophant, right? So that one, that card's also connected to temperance. But yeah, those are some good cards. But anyway, those are the synchronicities. And now we're back to 4 of Cups and 10 of Cups. And if I remember correctly from the reading that I did for myself recently with the 4 of Cups, is that there's an offer being presented or an offer being made, but you're not taking it, or you don't want it, or you don't think you need it. So, I mean, that to me is, there's a lot of stuff going on right now where we're being offered things that we don't want and we don't think we need.
Yeah. And the funny thing is they're in the same realm of what we're talking about today. Drugs, like this big umbrella called drugs, right? The the experimental medical serum. Sorry, I did that on
It's
purpose. Is
allegedly, yeah.
the, it's a drug, right? Drug company. That's the kind of stuff. So yeah, man. That's great. It could also refer to the giant sponsorship that we turned down. That $10 million you're trying to pay us to talk about. Get out of here. We don't listen. We're not sellouts. Yeah, just kidding. They try to buy the Over Sharon show, guys. They can't. Big Parma. Big chicken parm.
Ooh, don't get me hungry.
Yeah. They offered us all the chicken parms we can eat. And we're like, no, we're not going to do it. We're staying on message.
Yeah. So what else do you remember about the Four of Cups? Cups represent emotions as well.
Yeah. Well, sometimes the way I interpret the Four of Cups is it can also be something that it's a gift that you don't see. You're too focused on what's the physical, because those other cups are actually connected to the earth. So they're physical and touch them. And the other one, maybe it's just an idea. And since cups represent emotions, it could have to deal with maybe have a bunch of different things worked out and in check. But there's another one you're kind of working on in your emotional life. Maybe it could be a relationship you have with somebody that you're having issues with, or it could also even represent like a new relationship that's coming that you could just kind of feel that you don't see yet. Like the other three could be friends of yours or emotional supports or whatever it is. And then there's another one being presented, and you can either be denying it or maybe you're just not ready to see it yet. But yeah, all those is what could represent.
Good stuff. And
the 10 of cups though,
the
right?
10 of cups. The 10 of cups shows 10 cups, kind of in a rainbow format up there. And then you have father, mother, and son or daughter, and a house in the background, and maybe a mountain in the background. But to me, that just looks harmonious, and it looks like they've reached a place where they're happy, and they've built up the things that they wanted, and the things that they needed, and they're just content, and they're enjoying their prosperity and whatever they've made for themselves, maybe homesteading or whatever.
Yeah, I think it's a really good synchronistic card for our audience, especially because a lot of people that are fans of us are also fans of Owen Benjamin, and this is something he talks about, and also really reminds me of this recent adventure I just went out on. Shout out to Green Thumb Bear. I went up to his place and he helped me put a tent that he had on top of his truck. Neat. And yeah, it's really cool. So, and that's, that kind of represents him, because his wife and his son were there, and they had that nice house, and it was set up, it was beautiful. And there was a mountain, you know what I mean? So, and what I wanted to say about that is sometimes when you are in a situation, you don't realize how other people view you. So you could be in a situation, just living your everyday family life. So there's ups and downs, and, nothing ever really seems perfect, although it is. And then so you get stuck in your head about that. But then people from the outside, they see this, because they see the reality, they see the truth that you're not able to see because maybe your doubts or your fears, your self-esteem or whatever. You can't see that, even though it might not seem perfect, whatever it is. And other people, that's how they view it, and you're an inspiration to them. So yeah, because that's like that, when you talk about your family and stuff, and like when I talk about my family, we have issues or whatever it is, and we don't see that it actually is perfect. And people from the outside that see the way that we interact or actually might be jealous. They're like, oh man, it must be nice. I wish my brother was like that or whatever. So it's just something like that. That's what I like about this card. I mean, there's so many meanings you can get from it.
It is a must be nice card.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I like it. So,
well, let's get into what we're going to talk about. And I wanted to say first, though, that the quote that I mentioned from the Kabbalion, yes, it talks about transmutation. And we're going to get into that because we're going to be talking about drugs and different things and the effect that they have on you. But it could be that is transmutation. You could be elevating to a higher plane. And again, it's a tool. That's why they're talking about like the half wise, and they're torn asunder by reason of their own folly, basically just by their own mistakes and their own feeling around in the universe. They kind of bump up against things and screw up. But that's just a way. It's kind of like, if you could teach a kid, you tell him not to touch a pan, but if he touches a pan or a hot stove, he ain't never going to do it again. It's that whole thing. So but anyway, Sharon, were we going to sum up what we're going to talk about? Is that what we're going to do first, or are you just going to get into?
I think we just had noticed that I noticed as I was re-listening that we were talking about weed and all this stuff, and then you told some stories, and I was like, well, I never told my story. I got distracted.
How dare you?
And I never told stories about, the weed thing. So I can start with that, and then we can move on to talk about there are things like consciousness altering substances, aka psychedelics, which would include things like mushrooms and LSD. Then we could talk about stimulants as well, like methamphetamines or cocaine, perhaps. But throughout, we're definitely going to overshare with stories and commentary and things. And then we'll be ending with a discussion about how drugs are perceived in society. And so how all these perceptions around all these sorts of drugs, they're just more like, I guess they're altering substances to some of them are mind consciousness altering substances. Others are like, I don't know, stimulants are stimulating the body somehow,
Yeah, I would argue though that even, well, we could talk about this later, but even it could be argued that stimulants are altering your consciousness because they're just putting you in an unnatural state of like awareness where normally it would just last a short time, but now it's like
altered. Absolutely.
Yeah. So
yeah. So I was going to start with a story because we had talked about, I think we had hinted at this story, but I never mentioned it. So a couple of weeks ago, approximately, maybe a little more, I went to a friend's party, and she had a bunch of friends there. I mean, I can't even remember how many people were there. It was probably 40 people, 50 people, maybe. I don't know. It was quite a number of people. And we had a great time. The thing was, it was like, I want to say, quote, hippie adjacent, but maybe more, I don't know, heathen adjacent too. I don't know. More hippie, maybe more hippie.
Like
adjacent.
New
agey adjacent. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So there was lots of consumption of weed, and I'm not opposed to people doing it or anything. But I got there at an early time before most people got there, and so there were only like a handful of people when I got there, and I was sitting outside by the fire. They had like a little fire going. A fire pit thing. And I was sitting down, and I just had met a couple of people because I literally just knew that girl, she was my friend, and she invited me. That she's the only person I knew that at the time. And this joint is getting passed around. And so like the guy next to me passes it to me, and I look at him, and I'm kind of like smirking and saying, okay, guys, this is the first time I do this. And they're like, oh, really? They're just kind of like, seriously? And I was like, yeah, because I mean, well, I had done that before, but only in a bong, and I'd only done it twice. So this was back with my boyfriend at the time, like some years ago, a few years ago. I tried it. And back then I had experiences of like, it was altering my senses. So I experienced like heightened sense in my ear. Like I could hear stuff that I thought was coming from a different direction than it actually was. And I'm like, no, I swear the sound came from over there. And he's like, no, it was behind you. The speakers are behind you. It's not. And I'm like, I swear it came from over there. I knew I was just joking, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like so altering to my senses. And then also sight. So like we were looking at the floor, and then we were seeing like in the pieces of tile, we were seeing like creatures, and like we're like, that looks like a demon, and that one looks like, and we're just like, ooh, it's creepy. And so it was altering my vision and my hearing, but that's kind of all I remember. I don't remember it. And I probably just took maybe one or two hits from the bong, and that was it. So it wasn't like I overdid stuff, you know what I mean? And it lasted however long it lasted, maybe a couple of hours, I don't know. So that was my first experience, right? Ever, a few years ago. Okay, so here I am telling them I haven't done this. In other words, I haven't tried a joint before. And they're like, okay, well, just, they kind of told me, explained to me what to do. And I was like, okay, so I tried. And then I passed it around. And so then I was like, kind of like expecting, that in the next 20 minutes or so, something, I was going to be altered in some way with my hearing or with my vision or something. I just was like, yeah, I'll be altered in some way. Well, time flies by, and I forget. I totally forget. Right. And then later on, it passes by again. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to try again, because nothing happened there. So I try again. I keep going about the evening as more people are arriving, and, it's getting busy. I'm meeting people, I'm chatting with people, and then nothing again. So it's the rest of the night continues. And at one point, she had these little pills that she was giving everybody to as a gift, so
allegedly
that they were microdose of psilocybin mushrooms. Why are you laughing? So
I was like, allegedly, and you're like, they were no,
okay, well, allegedly, right? Because I got a microdose pill, and at the time I didn't know what was going on. I was just, everybody was getting one, right? I guess she was going to do a little thing where she said some words, and then, we all took it together. Okay. So I was kind of like, should I take it now or should I wait? And what's funny is I had just spoken to someone the day before, or that day, I think, I can't remember. And I was talking to that person, and he said, oh, have you ever tried mushrooms or psilocybin mushrooms or whatever, like microdose? And I'm like, no, I haven't actually. But, I said, my friend's having a party, and you know what? She's adjacent to that. So I wonder if she knows anything about it. Well, that evening, or whatever, the next day in the evening, I was like, dude, I manifested this because I got a microdose. So I was like, should I take it home and try it later, or should I take it with everybody? Because everybody's going to take it right now. And she did like a toast, and I was like, I guess I'll take it now. We'll just figure it out. We'll see what happens. Well, I took it. And the night goes on. People keep passing around joints. So I noticed time's passed, and I'm like, nothing's happened. So I take I'll take another one. So I try again. I literally took like 6 or 7 hits from all kinds of different people's joints, whoever's was passing it around. And I swear nothing. And even the microdose, nothing happened. Like, I experienced nothing. Mind you, I'm already just upbeat and generally a happy person. So it's not like, I don't need something to like make me do something. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it was never a temptation for me to want these things, because I was like, I'm already happy. I'm already a jovial person. I don't need substance. So, but it was funny because that whole evening, nothing happened. And so as I was telling people that evening, I'm like, okay, I've done this. I've taken hits and like nothing. And they're like, oh, well, you know what? Sometimes your first time, nothing happens. And I'm like, okay, but I've tried it before. So this isn't exactly my first, and it has been some years. So I was like, okay, well, maybe again, like for the first time ever, like, okay. Nothing happened that evening. Right. Okay. the other night, it was Thanksgiving Day. Another girlfriend had invited me to her house, and she was having a sound bath in the evening where there was going to be gongs and singing bowls and drums and all kinds of stuff going on. We were going to have a healing session with the sound bath with all the instruments, etc. And I went during the day, and I stayed pretty much the whole day. We just hung out the whole day. And her friend was there, and he had this little pen, this little weed pen, I guess. They're like electric, almost like an e-cigarette or something like that. And it was still light during the day. And then, he passes it to her, she passes it to me, and I'm like, okay, I've never used one of these things before. What do I do? So, and it was the same, it was funny. It was the same guy that was at the event. That's how I met this girl, because it was her and her friend. And it was the same guy that passed me the joint at the other party. So he's like, oh, okay. So he's like, this is an electric type version, right? So he passed it to me. I try it. I cough a little bit, and smoke comes out of my mouth. So I'm like, okay, I think I did something right. And he's like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, okay, mind you, time passes and I forget. I totally forget. Nothing happens. We're sitting in the kind of the living room area where all the instruments are, the singing bowls and the gongs and everything. And this is hours later, and it's a couple of hours before we're going to actually do the sound bath. And for anybody who doesn't know what a sound bath is, it's kind of like meditation with all these instruments going. So you have somebody will be playing a gong, or they'll be playing a singing bowl or a drum. There's also these like wave drums or ocean drums that, like, if you move them around like this, they have all these tiny little balls inside of them. And then when you roll them, they sound like the ocean. They're so amazing. They're just very relaxing. So all these sounds while you're lying on your back, like in like meditation, and they're just very relaxing. So that's what we were going to do. Right. So a couple of hours before that, we're sitting in the living room, snacking, eating, chatting, doing oracle card readings with each other. And then one of the girls says, I have this, she had just gotten back from Jamaica, and she's like, I have this mushroom chocolate. And another girl's like, oh, I have this other chocolate. And I was like, I brought regular chocolate. I can't remember I think the other girl had weed chocolate actually, but I don't know.
I got crack chocolate. It's so crunchy.
Everybody had chocolate, some kind of chocolate.
Why is this chocolate so crunchy? Sorry.
Because it's got crystals in it. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, it's meth. It's meth chocolate. It's great.
So
it comes in a copper foil.
I don't know what that means, but
yeah, it's because meth addicts steal copper. They'll like strip your house of copper.
Oh, I see.
So you just put it in copper foil instead of like tin foil.
Oh, so there we were sitting around, and then the girl's like, I have this chocolate, right? Okay. So it's, I guess, I mean, the chocolate was probably about this big around, and, like maybe like, I don't know, that thickness. And one of the girls is like, who wants to split this with me? Or who wants to try it? Who wants to have a bite? And it was 1 milligram for the whole piece of chocolate. And I was like, I will. And then, so she takes a bite, she takes half of it, and then she hands the other half to me. And then I was like, okay. So before I put this in my mouth, like, what is this going to do? Like, what am I expecting? And she's like, oh, you've never done this before? I'm like, no. And I said, okay, well, I've had like a microdose of, but like nothing happened. And she's like, okay, well, this is more than a microdose. And I guess microdose is like 0.3 of a gram. And I guess this would have been 0.5. So this is maybe almost double a microdose. Right. So anyway, she takes the half, I take the half. And mind you, I don't know what to expect, but I'm just, rolling with it, living in the present moment. Because mind you, the other stuff, the weed never did anything to me either. And then around that same time, that guy was sitting there on the floor with us as well. And he had the pen and he passed it around again. And I was like, for the sake of just whatever, because I don't know what all this is going to do. I'm just try again. So this time I tried, and this time I really took in quite a bit. And afterward, I was coughing like crazy. I felt like an idiot. I'm like, oh my gosh, I look like a fool. I'm coughing all over the place. So anyway, I handed it back to him, and I was just like, whatever, whatever happens. I'm here for a sound bath. I'm just going to have a good time. I don't care. So fast forward, as the evening progresses, a couple more people arrive, and they were specifically coming for the sound bath. And I find myself like feeling kind of like the tipsiness of being on alcohol, but it's not exactly the same. But I just found myself being more silly and more like lighthearted, and more than I even am. But it's just, I was noticing it, right? And that's the thing, is like the fact that I was noticing is the fact that I was already altered. And so I noticed that. I'm like, okay, it's something hit me. Something did. I don't know what it was, but something just hit me. So we get ready for the sound bath. We're lying on our backs. The sound bath begins, and wow, like I can't even explain to you how it was so very different than any other sound bath I've ever been to, because I was on something that altered me, so that every noise, every sound was just beautiful. And my eyes were closed, and I was just seeing things and just colors and things weaving in and out. And I felt like I was part of it. I felt enveloped in the sound. It was just indescribable. It was beautiful. I just wanted to be there. And it was funny because I kept opening my eyes, because there was still like, it wasn't super dark in there. There was still some light, but I don't know why I kept opening my eyes in it. And every time I did, I was like, you're screwing it up. Like, stop opening your eyes, like keep your eyes closed, because like, then all the beautiful stuff would stop. Like, like I was seeing like colors and things weaving in and out. And I was like, just loving the feeling, and every time I opened my eyes, I was screwing it up. So when that was all done, there was a guy there he was like the first time he'd ever even done a sound bath. And the funny part was, he was Indian. He was from India. Like, and he didn't really, I guess he grew up in a city. So he said that they didn't practice a lot of these things, like the yoga and the meditation and all these things. So he wasn't really aware of these things. So this was the first time he'd ever done something like this sound bath. So he asked, he's like, so now that I've done the sound bath, he's like, what would you say? He was just asking in general, people, like, what would you say is better, to do the sound bath while on a microdose of, because he knew that I had taken a microdose, because I had talked to him earlier. He's like, not a microdose, but whatever, like the psilocybin mushrooms. And he said, would it be better to do this on mushrooms or like not? And I'm like, you have to be on, you have to try it on, because like, and it was funny because I was still like a little bit altered, right? Still after that. So I was telling him, I've been to some of these sound baths. I go, and no offense to anybody, but Ain't, it's not nothing to write home about. They cool. But when you're on this stuff, it is like indescribable. You can't, like, you have to try it with this. You have to, because it's otherworldly. You can't even describe it. And it just, that's what it was. It was just very, very, very interesting. So I don't know if it was the mushrooms or the big hit that I took right before. I don't know, or if it was both, because like I said, I tried to do hits with the weed and nothing happened. Right. Okay. So fast forward to just like several nights ago, I get invited to somebody's house. It's just going to be a handful of us. I didn't know. It was just like a new friend of mine had said, hey, just come. And it was already late. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go. Even though it was late, because I'm not one to, like, once it's like after 9, I'm like, dude, I'm staying home. I'm going to go to sleep. But for some reason I was like, no, I'm going to go. So I went and I met some more people. And of course they're adjacent to this, because I met them kind of in the same circle. It's not the exact same, but they're kind of, there's people who know all of them. And then there's some that are, so anyway, I met this girl who makes mushroom tea. And she does like medicine parties or medicine nights or something like that, where she oversees people who will take the tea and experience the medicinal experience of it, which in many ways it's medicinal because it brings you to a place where there's no more fear of things. And what she told me that night was, once she had this awakening because of seeing things differently, because she used to be afraid of, of dying, right? She said all that fear went away once she could see what this world really was about. And it really like allows you to live because you don't have that fear anymore. So that was really interesting. But back to the weed a little bit, of course they had a joint being passed around right there. So I was like, I'm going to try again. And I tried again. No cigar. Nothing. So I don't know. I don't get it. But that's my story. And there were 3 stories in there.
Great stories.
Yeah.
I would say that it probably was the psilocybin, and maybe it did act with the.
Might have reacted with the weed.
Yeah, it's possible. Maybe that's the only way it's really going to affect you. Maybe you really need to get, I need the hardcore stuff. What do you got? Awesome.
Yeah, who knows? I might have a high tolerance to things because my father is from Colombia. I know that people are going to associate that with 2 things: coffee and cocaine. The white powder. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, and the brown powder.
But my family, I think I said this in the other episode, that my family, they have a high tolerance for alcohol. So I don't know if that translates to other altering substances as well, and stimulants and things like that. And it might, maybe it takes more for me to have some sort of reaction.
Yeah, it could be a whole host of different things.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just not inhaling Bill Clinton style. No, you coughed, so I think you were good.
I coughed like a freaking crazy woman the second time it was like the 3rd hit. I coughed like a crazy person. The first time I coughed, the second time I didn't. So the second time I was like, I don't know that I did that right. The 3rd time I was like, okay.
Yeah, those pens could be very dry, so and hot, so they can make you cough. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
really mess with them too
and
much.
that night of the sound bath, after the sound bath was over, a a couple of us, the girl that did the half of the mushroom thing with me, and I were outside because she wanted to smoke some tobacco in this little glass pipe thing. So I mean, I didn't know anything about that either. So I was like, I'll try that too. Can't hurt. So I tried that, and but I don't remember feeling altered by it. I just was trying it to see what it was like. I mean, I feel like I have tried it before, but I don't think I've tried organic or anything like that. So, and this was like really good, clean stuff.
Nice.
Yeah. So, but it was kind of mixed with a little bit of weed. But again, no, by that time outside, I was already tapered off. Like I had already tapered off all the.
Maybe you're just high all the time.
I am.
Yeah. So cheers to you.
So I don't need all that stuff.
You're like, you smoke and you're like, you feel different. You're like, this sucks. Like, that's funny. No, yeah. I mean, it's possible. I don't know how this realm works, so that's awesome. Good for you. I'm sure you still had some kind of positive benefits. Maybe it was like medicinal benefits or something,
Yeah, I mean, I loved that. I loved that sound bath.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was beautiful.
Yeah, I would venture to say that's
raving about it afterward. I was like, oh, that was amazing.
Yeah, I would say that was probably really healing on a lot of levels. Maybe some of you might quite not even understand consciously, because just the fact that you had those good feelings and you're easier on yourself and you just kind of allowed yourself that time to feel good. But the thing is, again, we'll talk about this too, but that could be abused as well. So
right. And I mean, you don't find me doing that every day. I just, I tried it.
Yeah.
And, it's like, I feel like Source brings me to those experiences when I'm ready for them. And if I'm ready for it again, then, it will happen. I don't go looking for them. I don't go looking for those.
Yeah, no, I like it.
Or things like that. Just Source brings them to me. And then I'm like, okay, I feel like that's what I should be doing right now. So I go.
Sweet.
Yeah. So, we are, like, I just told all my stories and everything. We are going to transition to discussing psychedelics in general, and or other substances that alter consciousness. So and since Brandon knows a lot more about this stuff than I do, which I just know from the little experience that I just shared, Brandon can talk about all the different things about mushrooms and LSD, and even things like DMT and ayahuasca and peyote. Not that we know every single thing about these things, but just that these are altering our consciousness when we try them. So, and then Brandon's probably going to throw in some stories about, some trips that he's had and, microdosing.
Yeah, this one time I went to Vegas. It was a great trip. Yeah. So I think that I guess I could start talking about my first experiences with it when I was younger. I just heard stories about acid. You hear about like acid and LSD, and people say if you do too much, you can go crazy. Sometimes they'll tell you if you do it once. That's what we always used to hear. You can go crazy. And I didn't just stick that cat toy in my ear as my finger itched my ear. Anyway. Yeah. So is
that a wand? What is it?
Yeah, it's like it's got a little feather, and then it has.
Is it for cats?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, because my cat was down here, so I was just swinging it around. And
okay.
Yeah. I'm multitasking. There's one cat here, but she's sleeping, and then there's another one,
somewhere.
There's like 6 of them now. I have two black cats because I'm a wizard.
Catman.
Catman.
Not cat lady.
Catman. So I never really experimented with any of that stuff, because when my friends were starting to get into that stuff is when I was thinking about joining the Marines. And there's all kinds of like stories going around saying like, if you they can do like a hair follicle test, and they know if you've ever done acid, and if you ever do it, you can't get in and all this stuff. So we never knew. So I was just like, I'm going to bet it, play it safe. I'm just not going to do it. So I had some friends that did it, and they would kind of tell me, but it was hard. They didn't really have words to express, I think, what it was. It was just like a crazy, wild ride, right? So, especially when you're young, I would imagine it's probably not. I do not recommend it for children at all, or teenagers. It's crazy. So later in life, I started to get into comedy, and that's when I started to experiment all types of things, like different behaviors, different foods, and drugs. And I started with weed, and I think we talked about that a little bit. But then last week we were talking about how I started with mushrooms, and it was from a place of kind of like you are, but I was I was looking to kind of like self-heal, I guess, but I didn't know it at the time what I was really looking for. And so like I said in last week's episode, I hung out with these two comedians. One had done it before, one never had done it before. And we took I think it was like about 1/8 of an ounce each. I think it's like 3.5 grams, something like that. And at first there was really nothing. And we ate them. My friend made sandwiches with Nutella, and we just ate them. We put them in there and ate them. And then we also were smoking some weed too, because he was like, it's a good thing, you smoke a little bit of weed, and it's like it like, whoa, I almost just fell off my chair. Yeah, I was seeing stars. It is like a good transition. So we were sitting. I remember my friend and I were sitting on my couch, and my other friend was sitting on another couch next to us, kind of like 90 degrees from us. And oh man, I'm trying to just get it so it pins me. And so, excuse me, my friend who had done it before started to feel it first, and I started to feel it after that. And the best way to describe it is like, we're sitting there on the couch, my friend's sitting to the left on the same couch, my other friend 90 degrees is like in front of me, kind of like over here, and that friend over here starts feeling it. And then all of a sudden I start feeling something, and just, it's like everything around me just kind of disappeared. And I had this feeling, because I was like, you don't feel it yet? And my friend's like, come on, man. And I had this feeling like there was a wall, kind of like Rick and Morty when a portal opens. I didn't know Rick and Morty at the time, though. Like when a portal opens, and my friend was on the other side, and I was sitting in the middle of this portal, like on the ledge, like, dude, come on, man, let's go. Like, we're going in here, It was so crazy. And then once that started, we were basically just laughing, like fits of laughter on and off. And I remember the visuals that I can remember were, so I lived on the second floor of a house at the time. It was like a second floor apartment, 1 bedroom. We're in the living room. And I remember like there's no ceiling, and I could just see all stars. And I'm like, just like, whoa, like the whole universe was there. And then if I put my consciousness, not even like a look, but if I just focused on the bottom half of me, it just felt like I was planted in the couch. And then it felt like there was this root sticking out of me going all the way into the ground. And I was just like, this is crazy. And then I remember different, so my friend went to throw up. That's a common thing. A lot of people go throw up. They feel better after. And I didn't for some reason. And I kind of wish I did. If I ever do another full dose like that again, I probably will, I guess, if I get, because my stomach was bothering me, but I'm really good at not throwing up. I just can like force it through, right? Like,
I hate throwing up, so I
yeah,
totally get it.
yeah. So, and because of that, though, I think it was giving me some negative, I don't know, visuals. It's hard to explain.
Feedback or
Yeah, like kind of bad tripping a little bit. Like, yeah, some negative feedback, but it's probably what I needed. So
you
that I
needed
remember
to
that
throw up.
happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I needed that pain, like it showed me
Oh,
things that I needed to see. So
oh,
then I remember that I felt like a rodent. Like it was really weird. Like I was looking at my hands, and they just seemed like they were like rat paws. It was just really weird. I had this weird, and if I looked in the mirror, I kind of just had this like rat aura or something around like a rodent. It wasn't like quite like a rat. That's just a way to explain it, but just like this rodent thing. It was really weird. And later on, I think there's one more thing I went with that. No, I'll come back to it. But so I remember also we went outside, and when we were outside, we were sitting near the fire. We had a little fire pit. We didn't have a fire going though. And I could look up into I could see, no, we were just, I think the downstairs people, it was my brother that lived downstairs with his girlfriend. So they were gone somewhere. So, I looked up though, I could see the light on in my bathroom. And all of a sudden I had this, crazy vision. Excuse me, everybody. And, it was like I was in the bathroom and I could see, and it seemed like there was this murder scene. And again, it wasn't like all this stuff. It wasn't like it's like a dream. That's the best way to explain it. Right. So it's kind of like a dream.
Yeah.
And I felt like something was going on. I'm like, what is going on? Like something happened. Somebody died here. It felt like it was just a really weird thing. And I started that at that point, I started to kind of started to have what people call, I guess, a bad trip. And I don't remember exactly what's happening. My friend handed me a leaf. He's like, feel this leaf, man. And I felt it. And right after I felt it, it all went away and everything was fine. But we were laying in the grass. We were looking up at the sky. It was great. Then we went upstairs for a little while longer. I don't remember exactly. But then after that, I remember we went downstairs. We walked to the beach. Speaking of coffee. Thanks, Sharon. Actually, this isn't Colombian. It's from Ethiopia. So screw you, Sharon. My cocaine isn't from Colombia either. It's non-existent. I've actually never even tried cocaine. We'll get into that. So anyway, but here I am. We went to the beach, and when I was looking at the moon, this is one thing that I think there's a couple things. Like if I'm going to say I'm definitely a different person after that trip. And one of them was my relationship with the moon. Like for the whole week after, I was afraid to look at the moon, or if I looked at it, I had this weird, scary, frightening feeling, but I would still do it. It was great.
Weird.
Yeah. And I'll tell you why. We'll get into that.
Please do. And don't forget.
No, I'm going to talk about it right now. So when I was looking at the moon, I just, it at several points, one time we were walking down, it was like a full moon. And we didn't plan this at all, of course, but now I know nothing happens by mistake, right? It was like a full moon or close. It was real big. And I lived near the water. It was beautiful. And as I'm walking down at first, it just looked huge and beautiful. And then there was waves because I live on Long Island Sound. And it's like a big lake, basically. I mean, the Great Lakes are bigger, but when it gets windy, there's waves, and there's like little white caps, and the moon reflection of the moon just looked beautiful. And it was a really beautiful autumn night. It wasn't even cold. And, but I remember there were waves, but it wasn't too crazy. So anyway, there was another point though, when I was looking at the moon and it felt like a flashlight, like a light was like shining into my soul. Like I couldn't, it was like God, right? Like you're looking at God, but that's not what I felt. I'm just saying.
Smokes.
And
Wow.
at some point it felt like a headlight, and it felt like I had gotten like hit by a car, or like something happened. And so later on, remind me to tell you about that. I'll tell you about that later. So I felt like that. And then there was just this judgment from the moon or something. It was really, really strange. Right. So even like I remember I went to go visit a friend. I remember it was a girl that I hooked up before. I can't remember if we were still hooking up or not. Yeah, I think we were. So I was still doing my thing. And so I think we had hung out, hooked up. And then I saw the moon outside her window. And it was like scary. Like I used to feel about scary movies, like they'd freak me out. Now I just laugh at it. But so it was that
What
same kind
about
of like
the
superstition
moon?
feeling. Yeah, well, we'll get into that, I guess.
Okay.
That might end up being the rest of this episode. No, stay tuned for 7.77. No, yeah, because I totally forgot about that.
777.
Yeah. Oh, we're gonna have that episode anyway. But yeah,
We're manifesting that one.
Oh yeah, we're manifesting. Well, but later with the moon, the crazy thing was when we were done, we started to come down or whatever. We were really hungry. So we're like, let's go to the, cause I think it was I think we started around like 4 or 5, and it was like 6 hours. So it was around midnight or 1 o'clock. And my friend, we we were pretty at that time. We were like pretty sober or whatever. So I don't know if we walked or drove down to the store, but it was like around the corner. We got snacks, but right as we were leaving my driveway, we saw that there was like a raccoon or a possum or something that got hit by a car, and it kind of blew my mind because I was like, wow, I remember when I was, and this was when I was upstairs feeling like the rat or whatever. When
And then you saw a bloody murder scene or something, right?
well, that was different. Yeah, I
Oh,
did see that though. Yeah, you're right. So that could have, I didn't even put that together, but that also I have other ideas of. But yeah, I didn't even think about that. But um, I felt like I got hit by something, or like there was a headlight coming toward me. You know what I mean? It's like really crazy. So I'm wondering if like
wow.
somehow my consciousness like wrapped with that one as it was like leaving its body. I don't know. It's weird. Um,
Wow.
yeah.
Really.
So that was my trip, and that was the crazy things that happened on that trip. And then after that with mushrooms, I found out about microdosing, and I was on this. I would try it a few times. Like the way I found it was, and it was like by some MIT professor or whatever that was like listing this, that was doing experiments. Maybe it was Harvard. I can't remember, one of those Massachusetts colleges. So um, you do it. Basically, it's between a fifth to an eighth of the normal dose. So you get like an eighth, and then you just cut that up to between like a fifth of an eighth of a normally or whatever. And you do it. I can't remember. So this isn't like, we're not recommending this. This is just life experiences, and we're telling stories about what we did. Don't do this, everybody, unless you want to, whatever. It's a free country. Anyway, so um you do it one day, and then you skip a, oh man, it's like you do it a day, and then you wait 1 or 2 3 days, and then you do it again, because like the first 2 days you feel like this high, and it's kind of like you're on weed. It's like a pot high, but it's different. And then similar but different. And then actually I have a great analogy I could bring up. So the way I described my mushroom trip afterwards was kind of like if you're looking at the stars at night, and it's a nice clear night, and you're looking at them, that's like being sober. And then when you smoke weed, it's like you're looking at them through a telescope, or like a P1000, right? Really, you could see it. And then when you're do mushrooms, like a full dose, you're fucking next to the star. You're like, whoa. Yeah, that's the best way
You're
to explain
in the
that.
star,
You are the star. Like, that's probably better when you, yeah.
right?
When you, well, so when you microdose, it's kind of, so weed is like a telescope. Microdosing is like, you know, a
Being
better high
adjacent
powered.
to,
Yeah. And then the fucking full dose is like you are it.
you are in it. Yeah.
So I had really good experiences with that. I remember one time I was at like a Marshall's, I think it was, and I was in line. It was one of these long lines. And as I'm in line, I was super present, and I could, my focus, normally you're at Marshall's, say you're in line at Marshall's, you think your focus normally is those shelves right there with all the cool stuff. That's all you can really see. You're not seeing farther past that, right? My awareness was the walls of Marshall's. Like I was looking at all the racks, like everything in that place was in my purview, like the words on, like the men's bathroom way on the other side. It was crazy. I was
Men's
just
accessories.
boom. I was like in that place. So yeah. And what I felt like, because that's when I was also meditating daily heavily. It really helped with that. It helped me stay present. And I feel like what it was it's like a tool. Okay. So it's like a crutch, right? So you're going to use this crutch to start walking or whatever it is. And then once you get going and running, you don't need it anymore. That's kind of how it felt. But
Right.
so that what I mean for that specific thing, like daily use, I'm not saying I wouldn't do it again just to try it, but like that's kind of how it was. He said you do it for like a month, and you keep a journal, and you write all these things down, and you do it. So basically you'd be doing 10 microdoses within a month, like every 3 days, something like that. And it was really interesting because I had gone to Vegas in between. So I had to, we'll just say I just started in Connecticut, and then when I was in Vegas, I was doing it still. Anyway, so that's how that happened. And
What happens in Vegas stays
yeah,
in
what
Vegas.
happens on the way to Vegas.
That too.
Anyway, it was so funny because we were driving, and I was with a couple people, and one of them is totally straight, but is not judgmental at all. He doesn't care what you do, which is great about my friends. They're just like, dude, you do you, because
Yeah.
this is the thing I tell people: when you have friends that that have killed themselves, then you don't judge what your other friends do to get through this fucking life. Anyway, statement made. You're there for them and you help. Like I've talked about my friends that have been on heroin and stuff. Like I know a kid I grew up with hung himself. He was on heroin, like in the
Mm,
woods. Just and I'd already went to the Marines and stuff. And I heard it was it was crazy. So
wow.
that's what I mean. I don't judge. So Vegas. And it was just interesting because you're in these casinos and it's like, and I would go out every morning. I'd get up early and go meditate in the sun. I'd like go out of the hotel and sit in a rock somewhere, like on the strip and just meditate. It was phenomenal. And yeah, it's awareness because
Wow.
especially Vegas, because it's all lights and it's all like craziness. So it's it's just something to be held on that. So that's basically my extent with the old mushrooms thing. And I've done that a couple times. I've had my hands on them. So any other time I just did the microdosing thing. I didn't do the full hero dose because I feel like I really have to be in the right place for that again, around the right people,
Absolutely.
be able to be in nature. Like if I could be in the woods camping and do it overnight, that would probably be the ideal scenario.
And then also, like, I would say someone overseeing and
Yeah,
someone
with the right
being
people,
there,
exactly.
right? Because y- you don't want to be on that trip. And I mean, you want somebody to be sober while you're on the trip, just to
Well,
keep an eye on you. You know what I
this
mean?
is the thing. Because we all three did it, but one of us had experience with it a lot. So that's what I would say is okay because it's not like if you're going to be like I said before, kids, or you're somebody who this will bring us right into the discussion. So we'll talk about what I think it does. Now, and quickly, I'll tell you, I've done a couple LSD trips. It was kind of like Diet Pepsi and mushroom is Pepsi, but I only did one hit each time. And it was like being extra high on weed. And it was a good experience. The first night I sat around a fire and it was like a weekend in July I was off, which I know, like a Saturday I was off, and somebody was having like either a wedding or a party. And like I said, I live kind of near the beach at this house, just far enough away so we can hear the band playing. It was amazing, right? We're listening, they're playing all this great music, and then we hear sirens and the music shuts down. The cops, we got to stop because the cops. And then like 10 minutes later, they start playing again. And then like the cops are looking for him because I guess they didn't find him the first time. They just shut down because they heard him. And the cops
Oh,
couldn't find him because they're on the side street. So we're hearing this drama of like sirens and then like people play, dude, and people
oh,
screaming. You can hear all that because I don't, because we were close to the beach and I know they used to do concert, like not a concert, but like a rich giant houses on the beach would do stuff. So I don't know if that's what it was or whatever it was. It was just hilarious. So that was a really good time. And then I did another time, uh, the LSD at my house when I moved back here with my parents and they went away. And it was about almost a year ago. It was last January and it was on a full moon. And it really kind of helped me put things together. That's what I used it for more. And I was able to get the ending of my book, just see things clearly, other stuff that I could already see, but it was like a fast forward button, and it was just like, oh yeah, duh, you already know this stuff. Like, oh, there it is. Right. So
yeah.
and then again, I used them. We just talked recently. Maybe we should talk about that. Right.
Okay. Well, I was
We're,
gonna just say before you do, I was
yeah.
gonna
Yeah. Yeah.
say maybe like the outcome card of a card reading, like that you were able to see kind of what you know, but
Yeah.
you haven't like wrapped your head around it and put it all together. But that card helps you see it, and this LSD helped you see that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the reason why, let's not forget to talk about that story, but the reason why it does it is what I was going to get into, is I feel like it's okay. Now we're going to use some words here. These words are used by everybody and they have different meanings. When I say ego, I'm just talking about like the conscious brain, like the logical left side of your brain. Okay. That's one way to put it. I don't even know if it is what your brain, I don't know. I've never seen that, whatever, but these are the words we're using to describe it. So there's this ego that I'm using right now to act like really tough, like I know everything. And I'm like, look at me. Right. And when I was doing mushrooms, so that's the ego. And our egos from birth have, in my opinion, been trained and conditioned to look for validation from exterior sources. So we crave this endlessly. You know, that's why a lot of people become famous and do podcasts and stuff. So that goes away, right? It evaporates. It takes a back seat. It's like, all right. So what happens is it's like when you're drunk, or when you see someone who's drunk and they'll get over emotional, and sometimes sometimes their true feelings are allowed to come out because their inhibitions are tamed, or they're lessened. So it's that same thing, but instead of what, buddy? Instead of being slightly subdued, it's just kind of like evaporates automatically. And there's aspects of your life that are staring you in your face. So say whatever it is, it's just like boom right there, and you can't get around it because it's like a mirror, right? It's like Neil deGrasse Tyson has said it like over 10 times on his Twitter. The only way to kiss yourself in a mirror is on the lips. Fucking creep. But anyway.
What?
Oh yeah. Owen Benjamin was just talking about that because he had it on his Instagram. He's tweeted that in the past 10 years, at least 10, 11 times. And somebody
I've never seen that. Wow.
Like just in different ways too. Yeah. It's hard to do a whole conversation, but yeah, hilarious. But yeah, in that way, it's a mirror. So that mirror is like the light's on and you can't get away from it. Oh man, there's another experience that I didn't even tell you about the rat in a cage thing. Remind me to tell you that. So the ego disappears, right? And you're left with facing everything. So if you're somebody who is a kid who grew up in a society that we have, and you don't know anything, it could scare the shit out of you, because you're not gonna, like me, I saw a murder scene. That was my way to see that I had been a womanizing asshole and I was killing, but I wasn't really killing, but I was, because all these unborn children that I could have been having that technically now are dead, I was wasting women's time when they could have been with, like one of my ex-girlfriends now is happily married and has a baby and stuff. You know what I'm saying? So again, no judgments on myself because I'm the great Brandino, but technically that's how my brain was trying to show it to me, because it was the only way it could like scare me but not freak me out. Yeah, man. And another thing I saw, though, thing I would circle back on that was there was at a point where I was like consciously in a cage. Like I used to put my hamsters in a cage, and there was people outside, like two doctors with clipboards, and I felt like a rat. Like I still was in that rat body. And they're looking at me like, what are you doing, dude? Like, no, you got to get back in there. This isn't the fucking way. You got to get back in there. Like you can't. And the other one's talking to the other one like, what the fuck is he doing, dude? You can't see this shit. Or yeah. It was fucking crazy.
They were looking at you as if you were what, a rat?
Like a rat, and like, but big. Like I was still the same size as them, but I was just in and I was hooked up to like Neo in the Matrix, kind of, right? And I was like waking up in my pod. You know what I'm talking about? Like when Neo wakes up in that pod. So, and then but there was people around me. They were basically telling me that this isn't like, what are you doing? This isn't the way. Like you got to go, like you have more shit to do. You got to go back in there. Like you got the answers are in there, like not out here.
Are in
like,
where?
Exactly.
It's a dream. Okay, got it.
No, they're telling me like, so basically if I was Neo waking up, I'm not making claims that I'm Neo, but I'm not a lesbian. But what I'm saying is no, if I was in a simulation, right? And then I try to wake up from it, but my job in the simulation wasn't done. Like say I was on a mission. They're like, no, you got to get back in there. That's not what I'm saying was happening. I felt like more like I was being examined and studied, and it felt very uncomfortable and scary. But now looking back on it, it looks more like it was kind of like, this realm isn't for you. Yeah, this realm exists out here. You have like your body's here too, but you still have to figure out in the other realm, like what you went in there for isn't done, and it kind of felt victim-y at the time. Like it was something I was being done and tricked into, like the Neo in the Matrix. But now looking back on it, it doesn't look like that as much to me. It's crazy, but it was a really crazy experience. It really changed the whole way that I view this reality, because even if it just was a dream or just parts of my conscious or subconscious or parts of my brain trying to speak to me. So even if that wasn't a real physical thing, so I'm not trying to say I'm like another being somewhere and this is just I'm in the Matrix now. But it could be an allegory to tell me, dude, you're not done. You still have shit to do here before you can get to this next level and maybe wake up in this cage and break out of it. But you're not strong enough yet. You know, maybe this cage, it can look like a cage that's holding you in, but maybe it's for your safety right now because what's on the other side of the cage isn't ready for you yet, or you're not ready for it. So you got to get back in there and make that over Sharon show in a few years and fucking kill it. So that's what I'm doing. And we're here now. Isn't that crazy?
Here we are. Well, I'm not going to let you forget the story, but I do want to make a comment because some of what you were saying reminds me of some stuff that I haven't thought about in a long time, except for after having experienced some of this, like the mushrooms and stuff, right? And in my life, in the last, even I would say even when I was young, I would have moments in my life and in time where I would be, and I don't even know, I can't tell you exactly where I was, why, or what triggered or anything. I just know that I have had moments where I feel like I am very aware of myself and my, I don't even know how to explain or describe it, but I have felt like, and this is of course without substance, without anything, but I've like, let's say I've been lying and I'm thinking that that's what it was maybe. But now that I think about it, okay, well, let me just explain what I feel. So, and you know what, now that I think about it, maybe it was brought on by, okay, so I've had some dental work since I was a teenager. And I've had to be not quite put under. Sometimes I was, but sometimes I had to be wide awake. So they would just do the stuff that would numb the mouth and everything. Yeah, but they would also give me Novocaine. So they would also give me stuff that would kind of alter my whatever. I don't know.
Yeah, nitrous, like the gas.
No, I don't remember it being. I mean, maybe they
Yo, my
did at some
dad's
point.
crazy sync. My dad just had some work done and he had nitrous. And when he came home, he was like fucking loving it. I'm like, dude, we got to get you some whippets. I'm gonna get a tank of nitrous for him. Just kidding,
Okay.
guys. That's terrible. Don't do it. It's like highly addicting. And like, yeah, there was this lady. Yeah, I'm totally kidding. But I'm not kidding about this. I'm kidding about how cool it is. Don't do it. There was a lady that was on I think it was like TLC or the show when I still used to watch TV, and she was addicted to huffing the things that you clean your keyboard with.
Gross.
Right? She would go to Walmart, like a camera crew would follow around. And now how I know TV works, I'm sure a lot of it was contrived. And she was an attractive looking woman, but she looked like shit, right? She was younger, like maybe mid-20s. So she had this like sugar daddy, old gross looking guy that would give her money to do it. And she came from like a family in New York City with money. And she was in the Starbucks, and I'd been in the Starbucks before, and she locked herself in the bathroom and she was like huffing. And then she just leave this shit everywhere and leave. And they wouldn't do anything because like it's not illegal to do it. You know what I mean? Like, and they had to sell it to her. Like they'd be at the store, she'd be buying like crates of it. So yeah, man. Anyway,
wow.
I just wanted to share that really quick because I didn't want to joke around about nitrous and then everyone's like, ooh, that's, I heard that. Yeah. I mean, I don't think, dude, when I was in the Marines, we used to do whippets. We'd be like in the store, like, and we would just get a can of whipped cream every once in a while. I would say like maybe once every
I don't
hour.
even know what whippets is.
So you get whipped cream. Guys, don't do this at home, but this is what we did. You get like the ready whip. You're in the store and you don't pay for it. You crack it open because COVID's not real, allegedly. And if you don't turn it upside down, if you turn it upside down, the stuff comes out. Ew, Jesus. But if you just spray it like this,
point it up,
just the gas comes out. And if you take a little, all right, this is what I did. I'm not going to say if any. All right. So what we would do is you go and you take a little and you breathe it in, and everyone would be like, you got to be careful because you can freeze your lungs. I don't know if that's true, but probably. So you take a little bit and then you just get this like head high for a little while. You're just like lightheaded and it's like, woo, it doesn't really last long. Now, if you sat there and sucked the whole thing, I'm sure you'd get really high, but we would do it because like there's no way to test that, I think, in the blood system. So, you know, we would just like do it as a gag. And it's funny because I don't know. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you
You
about
just
those are
wanted
my
to
nitrous
overshare
stories.
that with us.
Yeah,
Thank
that's it
you.
wasn't even on the list. Look, guys, we covered nitrous and it wasn't even on the list. See, sometimes drugs make a guest appearance on the Oversharing show.
Guest appearances. Yeah, and even like I didn't know that I was going to talk about this.
So what was it in the dentist, you know?
Okay, so anyway, at the dentist, sometimes they give you pills too before you go in. They tell you take these a couple hours before or something like that, so that you're not. They're probably anti-anxiety. Now that I think about it, I don't know, right? I don't remember because I was 14, for crying out loud.
It's probably placebo.
I
We're like,
I had
Sharon's
no
already
idea.
high. We could tell. Weed
I
doesn't
had
even
no
affect her.
idea what the stuff was,
No.
but I remember that it totally would alter me. And so I would feel like I felt like I was very small and like I was in
Xanax.
this body that was like bubbly and big and like
Xanax.
I felt like my fingers were enormous and fat and like
Dude, your
everything
parents gave
was
you fucking Xanax when you were 14. How dare they?
dude.
I think that's what that is. I've never done it maybe I've done it
I
once.
don't
I
know what
can't
it was,
remember.
but whatever it was so that I could be awake during these procedures in my mouth. And
Could have been Ritalin too. Ritalin
I
or
have no idea
Adderall.
what it was.
Yeah.
So
Sounds like Xanax from what I've heard people describe it. I've actually know somebody who died, Jesus Christ, from an overdose of Xanax and alcohol. So that's another one that's really big because Xanax isn't too bad. Well,
by
okay,
itself,
by
I
itself,
mean,
you still shouldn't do it. But what I'm saying is it's not harmful by itself
it's not
as
going to
much.
like kill you, but
But
mix
the
it with
thing is,
alcohol.
like, you don't have to mix that much with alcohol. And for some reason, it's just a recipe for death, allegedly. One of my brother's friends went out that way. It's crazy. Yeah. But, it's like, and I know other people too, just from, just from DJing and knowing people at bars and stuff. Yeah. It's crazy. That's the real pandemic.
Yeah.
In my
So
opinion.
anyway, I guess I was trying to remember why I've felt those feelings before where I'm in my body, but I'm like my consciousness is altered and I feel like I can see stuff or I feel like my body's like really enormous and bubbly and like everything is just weird. Um and I remember something else too. It totally screws up with your emotions too. So or it's so weird because I'm just thinking about this now. Because like all those other things can screw with your emotions too, in the sense that they help you see things so that you can let go of things, right? Allegedly. Um, so this stuff, I remember after that procedure, my mom and my sister, one of them was driving. I was in the back seat, and like obviously I still was under the influence of that stuff. And as we're going, whatever, they're talking, and one of them says something, and I swear it was something as simple as like, we're just going to turn left here. And I would just start crying. Why? I don't know. It was just something was triggering me to just like release all these emotions, these
It was
trapped
the
emotions.
left.
Yes, the left. We're going to turn left here.
The
No,
left.
the
Not
left.
the left.
The
The left was.
left.
You're getting anxiety, future anxiety. You knew that. You're like, not the left.
Not the left.
Yeah, sometimes I'm funny.
So yeah, really, really just those things just came up. I just thought of them. I forgot all about those things.
That's awesome, dude.
But
Great
yeah,
share.
your story about LSD the other night. What was it, like a week or two ago?
Yeah. What was that like for you?
It was very, very, very interesting.
Yeah, I can imagine.
You were very how shall I say? You wanted to talk and dominate the conversation, which is fine because you clearly, we wanted to hear what you had to say. But you were very not worried about people's feelings being hurt or anything. Not that you already don't, like, not that you already do worry about those things, but
I wasn't very polite, you could say.
No, not at all. Not at all. Like,
and it's funny because I even prefaced the whole thing by saying, listen, I'm not going to be polite right now, just so you know you're not dealing with normal Brandon.
Yeah, you're like, who was it? Great Brandino that
I was
came?
like, this is the Great Brandino right now.
This is the Great Brandino talking right now.
It's a great liability shield, you know what I mean?
This is not real
I'm not
Brandon.
responsible for my words right now.
This is not ego Brandon.
And listen what I have to say in a polite, nice way.
It wasn't ego Brandon talking. It was the Great Brandino.
Well, the thing is too, when you're in that state, I've noticed that it's easy. So it's like balancing. And if I'm on a point about something or talking about something, you mention something else, it's like
it derails you. So you wanted to stay on topic, and that was, if we said anything, it was going to just derail you. So you just kept talking, and you're like, wait, just
like, I was like, hang on. I get it, but hang on. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, that was so, and I feel like I really kind of was, when people say channeling source, and really I believe in my brain what that is that I was doing was everything was all the patterns I'm able to recognize and see and stuff. They were just locking in, and I was super focused. Like I had this, like it was like that. So when you focus like that, it's good because you could see real clear. But if it gets bumped a little bit, it's like shooting. You know, you have your scope and everything's all aimed. I don't want to aim a weapon at you. I'll go this way. So it's like you have it all lined up. See how safe I am. I don't even want to point a fake weapon at you over Zoom. Anyway, so yeah, no, it's that Marine Corps brainwash training. It's great. So, never point a weapon at anything you don't intend to kill or to destroy is what they say now. So if you get hit a little bit, it's going to throw that shot off. And if it's a scope, and say you're like a sniper and you're 1,000 yards or whatever it is out,
it's even more off.
You're going to lose that enemy away. Or you're going to lose your target. If you just get bumped, you're going to you're going to like, where did he go? Because you only have this little scope, right? So yeah, it's just like that. Except I didn't shoot anybody, allegedly.
No, you were just shooting off at the mouth.
Yeah, automatic, full auto.
With some with your gravy.
Yeah, full over gravy spurts. That was really cool, and it was a good experience. Thank you for putting up with me. Yeah. So we've been going almost an hour and 20 minutes. This is awesome, dude. Yeah.
We're not even done.
I know. Keep going though. I just want to let you know.
Okay. So we were going to say some stuff, like we're going to include that there are other substances like DMT, like ayahuasca, like peyote. And these are also able to alter consciousness. And we've talked about this. We've talked about ayahuasca and I can't remember if it was DMT or LSD that we talked. I think we talked about those three before briefly on another episode. And just talking about how they alter your consciousness so that, and it's not like it's in a bad way. Of course, people can abuse these things, right?
Yeah, of course.
But some of these things actually are healing because they allow you to go within, just like Brandon was talking about earlier, where these substances caused him to see what he was doing to other people by sleeping around with women, and he realized what the implications were for himself, and nobody had to tell him, he told himself. And these substances sometimes will help you go inward and see those things, for people who need that extra little push. So I don't know if Brandon has more.
I had a friend who actually was telling me I was good friends with her. I met her on Tinder, and I decided to just be friends with her I was like, we shouldn't hook up. We should just be friends because we got along really well. So she was she was telling me, she's like, oh, you're like a sex addict. Like she was explaining it to me. And I was like, that's bullshit, all this stuff. And then I had this experience and then I went through all this stuff and I figured it out. And I, I called her laughing about it. I was like, dude, you were totally right. Like it's just that my perception of what sex addict meant was wrong. Sex addict, I just had severe intimacy issues, right? That's sex addict's the label or term. It's just whatever it is, right? It's so what she was trying to tell me, she was basically saying, hey, you're sick. You have a disease in your emotional field here because of whatever it is. And then I was like, fuck you. And then I saw it and I was like, fuck, she was right. So you're right. I had to see it for myself. It didn't. So it was, and the reason I brought that up is because you said I had to see it for myself. And she told me like weeks before. I mean, it was like so synchronistic. Obviously, nothing happens for mistakes, right? Or not everything happens for a reason.
For a
so
reason. Yeah.
it was an amazing, crazy thing. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and what I want to say about all these psychedelics, what you can kind of really look at them as, how I look at them is it's like a simulation of death. It's like a near death experience. That's why I believe people do baptism. That's where it came from. I think maybe one of the roots. If you hold an adult underwater until they think they're dying or drowning, then allegedly these chemicals can come into their head, like DMT and stuff like that. Like allegedly the brain can secrete it. So you go into this state and you're forced into it. So each culture, it seems a lot of them, like a lot of native cultures and different ones, have their own way to do it. It's like a rite of passage. So, but with us, it seems like it was just dumped on our society without any real instructions, like, oh, check this shit out. Right. It's like, so I think it was abused, just like everything else among children happens. And again, good came from it and bad came from it. And it's up to you as a person to decide what's right for you. And if you're going to use this, it's kind of like when you're stuck in some of these situations, but you're close to the edge, like I was, and I did this and it was like a smack in the face for reality for a few hours. And then I went back to my normal life and I was like, Jesus, I was just like, emotionally raped or whatever it was, like,
Yeah.
not emotionally, but also like, thought raped. My brain was like, like had to go and shower and stuff. And so, lay down like Ace Ventura. And, yeah. And that's when I went through like the whole dark night of the soul and stuff. But we've talked about that before. So we don't have to. We can go read my book, everybody. Shadowworked.com. Go to shadowworked.com. Yeah. So I think that will wrap up psychedelics.
Yeah. And the next thing we wanted to touch on is stimulants, because they're also altering as well. So what can you tell us about some of these stimulants like meth and cocaine? And I mean, I don't even know what some of these things are: meth, cocaine, speed. And then I think we were going to say Adderall, because some people go on those things. I don't honestly even know what that stuff does.
Well, I don't have a lot of experience with those stimulants. The most ones I'm familiar with are like, caffeine, coffee,
Okay.
stuff like that. No dose.
Yeah.
I used to drink Red Bull a bunch. I've sometimes when I was driving home from the Marine Corps, sometimes when I was when I was driving home from the Marine Corps, that thing, that place. When I was driving home from Cherry Point, North Carolina to Connecticut, if I was going it alone, and sometimes even when I was not, but mostly when I was going it alone. Like if I was coming home for a weekend, it was like a 10 to 12 hour drive, depending on traffic.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, I was a beast. One time, I was with a friend. One time I drove 10 hours straight without stopping. And then I stopped because we had to get gas. And then I was like, all right, you drive. But so anyway, I on the nights, so because sometimes I would work all day and then just leave and drive all night home. It was crazy. So I would just get these no-dose pills at the gas station, and it was like you're just like just jittery. It's crazy.
I
Then
don't
I
like
get
that
home.
feeling.
Yeah, I hated it. And
Uh-huh.
I got home and I couldn't sleep. I would just lay in
Yeah.
the bed like shaking, then finally exhaustion would take me over. So yeah, no, I don't suggest it, but at least I didn't crash, I guess. But that's really the only experience I have. But I know from hearing other people's experience with cocaine and stuff, I don't think it's that. It's more of like well, I think it's more of like, so we experience that feeling, me, you and I, without drugs, but it's like a prolonged feeling of like euphoria and clarity and everything. So sometimes we get these. So I think it's in like heightenedness, maybe even like a little bit of adrenaline, something like that. So I think what it does though is it just keeps you that going all night or however long you do the drug. And I'm pretty sure that as you start to come down, you probably feel like shit. So you do more to keep it going. And as far as the addictive nature of it, I don't, as far as the addictive nature of anything, I've really seen it, people only really being able to quit anything when they decided that they were done with something, so
Right.
but I still wouldn't recommend fucking around with it. But maybe if somebody could leave comments if you've had experiences with these stimulants, please comment below this video and let me know what you think, or some of your stories, or let us know.
Yeah.
Or you can
You
email
had,
us the story and we can read it on the air at brandon@comedylol.com.
as for like meth, I think you've mentioned before about meth being like people say, oh, it's so addictive and this, that, and the other. Or maybe I don't know if it was crack or meth that you were talking about, but somehow saying that people, say it's so it's a really bad thing, or they're very, I guess this brings us to the perceptions, right? The perceptions
Mm.
of how people see things. So um which is what the topic we're going to close up with. So are these things really like I've heard you say there's people who do meth on the weekends and that's their thing. Like it's not like they're addicted to it, but they use it for a purpose or they have a purpose for using it. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think what happens is there's this stigma that happens between people, and they, just like everything else in society, there's all these lines of division, like football teams. There's also like, I'm a weed guy, I'm an alcohol guy, I'm a crack guy. And if you're a crack guy or a cocaine guy, it's not as accepted. Like weed used to be like, it still was never like looked upon as like someone who says they do coke, that was always like, oh, evil. But it's still, among some people, the weed thing is evil, but it's obviously recently in the past few years, it's just become so accepted. So now people who do weed feel like they could be, like discriminate against people who do other drugs. And they're like, I often say crackhead, but I think that you could just do crack on the fucking weekends. And I've heard stories, and I know people that just do these other stimulants, and that's how they party and they get down, and they're like, they're not missing teeth and they don't strip houses of copper. And I'm not saying like, it's just like, I know people who go out and drink on the weekends, right? I don't hang out with these people,
Right.
or I'm not
They
friends, but
drink
basically,
socially.
yeah. So they smoke meth socially or whatever it is, and it's
Right.
just their thing that they like to do. Now, I also know people who have a lot of problems and stuff like that. And I mean, people that are now dead because of that, friends of my parents and stuff, family members growing up, cousins, and they just let it take over their whole life. It's crazy. But I get it. Like we talked about last week about my cousin, one of my cousins, he's still alive though, but I mentioned that to my friend, and I told him how I brought him up, and I was talking about my cousin. He started laughing, and he told me a story how, so my cousin now lives in the house. Well, he doesn't now, I don't think anymore, but he was living in the house he grew up in for a while after he got out of jail and like straightened up and stuff. And there was it was near the beach. It was an area that floods. So there's this big flood that came. And after the flood, the neighbor's grill was in his property. And so the neighbor called the cops and said that he stole it, because that's how much the
Oh,
neighbor hated him.
Christ.
I know that sounds like, oh
Good
Christ, but
God.
let me tell you, I heard that and I didn't even think, oh Christ, because I know how bad my cousin was. So they were probably just trying to get some kind of revenge on him. And I'm not saying it's right, but I could see their point
As
of
a
view. They're like,
joke,
fuck that
maybe?
guy. No, they were probably serious. They were probably like, anything we can do, because he was so terrible back in the day. I mean, he might have killed one of their cats. I don't know. He was bad. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, man.
I never heard a story. I'm just saying it was like, so they could probably look for any chance they get. But yeah, it is a little crazy, but I just want to bring that story up because it's hilarious. And if my friend told me about that story, then it's true. Like he doesn't, yeah, he verifies. So he's got the line because he lives down the street. So he's got the line on all the hot gossip in that area. But yeah, it's so funny, dude. Oh man. But yeah, so there's this stigma. So I feel like I've been trying to be more open-minded, and I don't really judge people for, like I said earlier, like whatever you got to do to get through to get to the next level. And if it's something that you don't need, you'll figure it out sooner or later, and you'll get sick of it, right?
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
Because
I mean, that
sometimes when people tell you to stop doing things and they try
you
to
do
like,
it more.
yeah, exactly. It drives you into it, but that could help you if it's driving
It
you
could
into
help
it.
you too. And then you get more sick of it until you're
Yeah.
done. Yeah, no, it's just a common theme that you and I have been talking about lately is the just do it till you're done.
Yeah.
Just do it till you're sick of it. And, you know, and you can't cast judgment on other people because it's like you have to look back at yourself and go, well, I used to um, be this like this, and how can I judge someone else just because I mean, that's what they need in their life right now to wake them up. And even if it takes them this whole lifetime to figure it out, that's not going to work. Maybe the next time they come back, they'll figure it out. They'll work on it and they'll maybe do something
Yeah,
differently.
exactly. And I'll quote Ram Dass here because this is a perfect thing, because he started his life named Richard Alpert, and he became a Harvard professor, psychology professor, and he was like running the whole department. And then him and Timothy Leary, who is a name that a lot of people probably heard, were working together, and Timothy Leary discovered psilocybin or came across it and all this stuff. And then they also got a line on LSD, and that's when they were doing all these experiments and doing it all the time, and they talk about it and stuff. But so then he went to India after that, and he became Ram Dass. And he said, this quote from him is, "We're all just walking each other home." Just look at it that way, like we're all just walking each other home.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Rest in peace.
it's a compassionate way to see other people in our lives, because we're all on a journey, and everyone is just in a little different place than we are. So we can't cast judgment on people like that. They're
Should
dealing with
not.
their own quote demons, right?
Mhm.
Everybody's dealing with their own issues on the inside, and only they can come to that realization of how to escape that and find peace.
Yeah. And no, too, man, this is great. I'm glad you said that, because I wanted to I can make a point here, and it's about judgment, because I think there are times where it's okay to judge people, because when we say judgment, what I'm speaking about is more about judging a person,
Like casting judgment as in like with the whip, like that
yeah,
kind
well,
of
if you see
judgment.
somebody's behavior, and what I'm saying when I say judgment, it's like you're looking at their behavior and you just pity them or feel bad for them, or you're like, oh, woe is me, or like, woe is them, or you have despair, or there's any kind of negative feeling toward it. Now, I don't mean like, so if somebody comes in your house, or if you know someone that's like doing terrible things, and or somebody comes in your house and tries to hurt you or something, and you could stop them, you're
That's
still,
different. Yeah.
well,
That's more,
you're making a judgment on them, but you're making a judgment, you're using your judgment in the moment to act proper to the situation in the physical realm.
yeah, to react
But you
to it.
could still not hate this person, and this is a hard thing to understand when we talk about this.
Yeah.
This is like loving your enemy. When Jesus talks about this,
Yes.
you still have compassion for them. You understand, even as you slay, like they say in the Bhagavad Gita, like even as you're slaying the person, you don't take them out of your heart. Or you're empathizing and all this stuff. And again, this is like next level stuff. This is probably like samurai stuff or whatever, but it's the path to attain to, right? So I'm not by any means telling you to just sit around and just be like, everything's perfect, and oh, this guy's going to steal and rape and all, oh, it's fine. No, not that. That's the negative message that could be gleaned from this. It's always the middle, don't, it's always from, what do you feel inside? What feels right You know, do what I just said, does that feel right? Or what, you know, the other way or one extreme or the other? Do the extremes feel right? Or is it somewhere in the middle, you know? So that's all I wanted to say, because that could be taken out of context. And, you know, people would be like, oh, you should never judge anybody. Yeah. It's like, well, so at least we fixed that little.
I know this sounds kind of weird, but like when you said you can like I don't know, like when you're in self-defense or something like that, and this person, you don't have to hate them or you don't have to like that. Okay, so you saying that reminded me for whatever reason about the movie Avatar, and where they have to hunt and they have to eat, let's say they eat this animal or whatever. I can't remember what they were doing, but for whatever reason, or maybe that animal was hurt, I think, and to put it out of its misery, right? I can't remember the details, but anyway, she like touched the animal and she basically was telling this animal like it's okay, before she kind of put it out of its misery. Yeah. But she was like giving it acknowledgement and love and compassion before doing that. And they, it's like they did that with everything.
And that's like an act of self-love and self-forgiveness as well, because like when I was in the Marines, they trained, in boot camp, 3 months, kill, kill, kill. You're building up like this hate and anger, and you want to rip your enemy apart. And you would, like, who is this enemy that we're going to be facing that we have all this hatred for? Like, where's this hatred coming from? Like, is it hatred of the system that we're stuck in and it's being manipulated? Crazy questions. Anyway, maybe we'll talk about that in another episode. But if you are interested in military stuff, you can go on this channel and check out the lovely videos that I did with my friend Kaylee, who lives in Australia. She's a Brit living abroad in Australia. And we talked about our experiences in the military. So check that out on this channel, Brandon Bonanza, but on YouTube. But what I wanted to, say was like, you don't have to hate or kill this person. If someone breaks in your house, you can be thinking to yourself, wow, look at this guy. He's a crackhead. Okay. He's really fucked up. He probably was abused. He probably was like a Sling Blade. He probably grew up in a shed in the backyard. And even if these things aren't true, you're just telling yourself this. And as he comes at you with a deadly weapon and about to hurt you or yours, and you have to, unfortunately, whatever. I don't like to say this because it's like fantasizing, but like, these are the thoughts you're having, right? You can have these thoughts and you're just like, sorry, man. Maybe next time you'll figure it out or whatever it is. And again, you're like forgiving yourself because you're not like, yeah, I'm going to do it. And you're like, you have this rage squirt and you're like, yeah, you're excited about it. And you like get the bloodlust, because that is another thing that allegedly could be addicting, because you get this adrenaline and then you're excited and you feel power, because technically you could, not that I've ever felt this. I've never killed anyone. I'm just saying it because I did say I was in the Marines. I'm just letting everyone know. But it could be like a feeling of power. And especially if somebody has been felt powerless their whole life, like I was the oldest of 3 boys. So I've always been in this position of power, and I've always been tall, and like wherever I worked, I always like work my way to the top somehow. But there's people, obviously, because when I was younger, like in high school and I was picked on and stuff, it was different. I didn't really have the power. So when I came home, I could have used that and I seek the power that I had over my brother. So I probably abused that, right? Like we'd fight and stuff until my brother got bigger. and then you had competition. Yeah. When I got back from the Marines, he was like 3 times the size. I was like, Jesus, dude. But so that power they feel from whatever it is, even if they're not killing someone, they're just abusing them or beating them up. They feel that power and it becomes addictive. They get addicted to it. They're a dick. All right, I'm done. So, I think that you got to watch that. So, yeah, cool. Is that everything? I think so. Yeah, what a great episode, if I do say so myself. That was a great Brandino speaking, everybody. I apologize. I'm not so braggadocious. Just Brandino is. Thank you guys in the chat. We love you. Last week was so awesome. We had a bunch of new people in there that we didn't really see in the chat before. So that was a lot of fun. It's really inspiring. Yeah. It makes us want to keep doing it more, especially when we keep people laughing, because that's my whole mission in life. Because I feel laughter is the direct opposite of despair. So if you can laugh, it doesn't matter what's going on. Like they're burning you at the stake and you're just like laughing at them like, like great. Now I got to come back and do this all again or whatever, allegedly. Anyway. Oh, that's awesome. So let's see. We did kind of want to talk about one thing, and that is in this topic, we have somebody we're talking to that wants to be a guest. So it looks like we're probably going to have a guest soon talking about these topics that we've been, and they have a little more experience than Sharon and I do. So it'll be very interesting. So stay tuned for that. We don't want to give too much away, though. We like to keep mysteries here.
Yeah.
And what else did I want to say? Make sure you hit like, subscribe, share the video. Just get the link and share it all around to people you think that might be interested. But remember, don't woke rape people. We never advocate for that. But and I also
ask questions.
yeah. Also,
everything is alleged.
That's right. Exactly. What do you mean you think the world's round? So I also put a clip. I sent a letter to Owen Benjamin and he read it about a month and a half ago. And I got it clipped from our great friend Adam. Yeah, I think it was the end of October or the beginning of November, I think. It was episode 1255 of Owen's show. But the lovely Adam, who's been on episode 3.3 and 3, yeah, he clipped it for me. And so I put it on YouTube. So check it out. It's only like 5 minutes long and it's really funny. I make him laugh. Yes. With my awesome humor. and
you got him to say hilarious too.
Yeah, I did get him to say hilarious. So yeah, it was fun. So yeah, check that out. And then check out all our shows, all our stuff, and share and share alike. And what do we say, Sharon, if they're not Sharon? What do we say again? Did I screw that up?
You're not Sharon.
Then you're totally not Karen.
That's right.
So don't be a Karen and share.
Share on.
Share on.